In 2011, a young Wales team which had lost some of its senior figures reached a World Cup semi-final on the back of a poor Six Nations with a novice captain in Sam Warburton at the helm. More than a decade later, history seems to be repeating itself, even though time will tell if a similar tournament finish materializes for Warren Gatland's side. Head coach Gatland and his team seem keen to push the 2011 comparison narrative, and the similarities are certainly there for all to see. It's almost like a carbon copy of 2011 when Matthew Rees pulled out. That opened the door for myself, admitted Warburton, who captained Wales at just 22. Gatland gave youth its chance in 2011 and the results were spectacular. The likes of Warburton, Dan Lydiate, Taulupe Faletau and George North helped Wales to the last four. A place in that year's final would likely have been theirs were it not for Warburton's infamous sending off against France. A repeat finish this year would be a fine achievement for Wales after the toughest of seasons. It will be a tough ask, but it is also not totally out of the equation. Wales had a shocking Six Nations, finishing fifth in Gatland's first campaign back in charge. Poor performances on the field were matched by off-field carnage. Wales's players threatened to strike amid contractual uncertainty and financial chaos. It was a marriage of nightmares. This summer, Gatland lost more than 400 caps of international know-how when Alan Wynne-Jones, Justin Tipuric, Ken Owens, Rhys Webb and Corey Hill withdrew from the World Cup. It means Gatland, like in 2011, is now looking to his young bucks for inspiration. The likes of Dewey Lake, Jack Morgan and Tommy Reffel are set for key roles. In the absence of Owens and Jones, rookie forwards Lake and Morgan are emerging as potential captaincy candidates. Although Mail Sport understands Will Rowlands is also in consideration, Warburton believes Ospreys flanker Morgan is a potential leader for both now and in the future, if he comes through Wales's World Cup warm-up games in August. In 2011, the captain was announced a couple of weeks before the World Cup. We played 3 warm-ups in 2011 with no official captain, Warburton said. There is no pressure to do it now, but Jack is an obvious one. His name will be in the hat. If he is fit and healthy, he'd be a fantastic candidate. I can see that happening. You can throw caution to the wind when you're a young buck. You're perhaps a bit naive at your first World Cup. It's not that you have nothing to lose, but you have a different mindset when you play rugby at 23 to when you're 35. You don't feel pressure or worry about the negative consequences like you do when you're older. I think someone like Jack would be great. I say Jack because I think he's performed consistently well. He's a really good professional and importantly, a really nice and humble guy. It's hard to lead when you're arrogant and have an ego. Jack doesn't have that. People buy into that authenticity and humility. I think he could be a really good contender to captain Wales in the World Cup and beyond. Only last summer, Morgan was left out of Wales's summer tour of South Africa. But he has responded impressively and is eerily similar to Warburton in many ways. He has already captained Wales at under 20 level. Like Warburton, Morgan is not a hugely vocal presence, but he leads by example. He told Mailsport at Wales's Switzerland training camp he is not thinking about being handed the captaincy. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because that's what I look for in a captain, Warburton said of his shared characteristics with Morgan. That's what I wanted to be like. The captains I've got along with have been down to earth, very professional, and led with their performances. I see that in Jack. I remember thinking being made captain felt like a lot of pressure, but now I look back on it, it was the best thing I did accepting that role. I'd say to any young player who is offered that role, you have to accept it because you have to go out of your comfort zone to achieve things in life. Warburton is excited by Wales's next generation, some of whom he worked with during a brief coaching stint under Gatland's predecessor Wayne Pivac. Gatland finished 5th in the Six Nations at the start of his second stint in charge, with many quick to write Wales off at the World Cup as a result. But Wales are in the easier half of the draw and their toughest pool opponents Australia have suffered defeats in their 2 rugby championship games so far under Eddie Jones. There are some good young boys in the Wales squad now, and you can imagine in 2 to 3 years 10 of them could be British Lions, Warburton said. I can't say the player, but I've heard from some of the young guys they wanted the older players to stick around because they wanted to displace them in the squad. That level of belief is what you need from your young guys. Whether they are good enough, we don't know yet. We'll find out in the World Cup. Wales will be respectfully laughing at people who think they're not going to get out of the group even though they might not. It happens. Look at Scotland in 2019, but they will have the utmost belief they will make the quarter-finals, and then it'll probably be England or Argentina. Can Wales beat either of those teams? Of course they can. The players will be gunning for a semi-final. That will be their talk, and they have absolutely every right to believe that. We're right to talk about the things that haven't gone well in Welsh rugby this season, but there is a lot of reason for optimism. Sam Warburton is a Canterbury ambassador. Sam was speaking as Canterbury and the British and Irish Lions extend their partnership for the 2025 Tour of Australia.